Hello to anybody who's watching this video. Today, I've just decided to upload a book review on 12 Rules for Life by Dr. Jordan Peterson. This book took me a while to read. A fair warning to anyone who decides to read it. Jordan Peterson's handwriting is very dense, or his apologies. Jordan Peterson's writing is very dense. It is pretty wordy, but I think that's because he writes with a lot of emotion. He's somebody who's very smart, who has a lot of thoughts going on through his brain. So he does his best to put all of those complex thoughts out on paper in a way that a reader can understand at any level. It was definitely a pretty impactful book for me. I would say that I learned a lot about myself, about how you treat other people, about how you conduct yourself going through the world. It was definitely a fantastic read. So I guess I can just dive into the context of the contents of the book here and give an overview of what the book is about. So, as the title suggests, it's basically, 12 separate rules that you can follow in your everyday life that if you adhere to should point you in an upward direction, should improve your life, and should help you to live better. Which is a pretty interesting. It's a pretty interesting concept. Um, he definitely did a good job of it. It's separated into the 12 chapters. Each of them is its own individual long essay, with background. He tells a lot of stories, and sometimes you don't understand where he's going until the end, where he finishes it off, and you actually understand what he was getting at the entire time. Excuse me. So let's start off with rule number 1, which is stand up straight with your shoulders back. The idea behind this rule is that no matter what's happening in your life, you want to carry yourself in a certain manner. You want to always have your head high, always be looking people in the eye. You want to dare to enter the world and compete with others for territory, in a sense. The analogy he uses in this chapter is about lobsters and how a victorious lobster will, you know, have good posture. It'll get the most territory and the best territory. It'll find the best mates. And a defeated lobster or a loser will have poor posture. It'll lose its shell. It'll shrink away. It'll be hunched over. It won't get any mates. It won't get any territory. So the idea is no matter what position you're in life, you should be standing tall with your shoulders back, with your head up, because it allows you to be in a position to compete for the best territory, to compete for the best mate. You have to actually put yourself in the competition before anything else. The ending to the chapter is very poetic. He does, he creates this fantastic picture of why you should do it. You know, it's definitely a really cool rule. It's something that some people, like a lot of people, don't think about because it's very simple posture in it, but it actually can play a big difference. Rule number 2 is to treat yourself like someone you are responsible for helping. So, in this chapter, he talks about how when we're responsible for helping someone, we often treat them better than we would treat ourselves in the same scenario. We're actually more likely to complete a course of antibiotics for a pet than we are for ourselves. And the idea is that because we know ourselves, because we know, our own flaws and how imperfect we are compared to everybody else, that creates a situation where why would we want to help ourselves when we know just how flawed we really are? But the idea is that we should be treating ourselves as if we were outside in someone else's shoes trying to help ourselves as that person. It's a it's a weird concept to understand, but once you wrap your head around it, you understand what he's getting at. Um, you know, I think it kind of relates to the idea that we're very good at giving advice, but we're very bad at even taking our own advice. So it's another good chapter. It was another good rule to follow, another good lesson. Um, Apologies, it actually has been a minute since I read through that chapter, through this book, so some of the stuff I probably will forget. Um, if I was smarter, I would have recorded this as soon as I was finished reading. But here we are, anyways. I'm just gonna record this video and post it and see what happens. Rule number 3 is to make friends with people who want the best for you. This is a pretty obvious one. You're the average of the 5 people that you surround yourself with. So, you know, you want to make sure that the people that you spend the most time with are ones who are lifting you up and not ones who are dragging you down. Um, he talks a lot in this chapter about, you know, better people who may call themselves your friends, but they don't actually want to see you rise up. They just want you to stay with them in, their pool of unambition where they don't do anything special and, don't try their best. And they want to keep you there. So in reality, they're not your friends because they don't really care about you. They care about themselves and you being with them. They're actually quite selfish in that regard. So make friends with people who want the best for you. Rule number 4 talks about comparing yourself to who you were yesterday, not to who someone else is today. This is a fantastic rule. It's one that I remind myself of all the time because I'm somebody who struggles with comparing myself to others quite a bit. But the idea is that in your life, your only competition is who you were yesterday. That's the only person you're competing with. And other people, they're on different paths. They've had different journeys. They're on different tracks. You should not be comparing yourself to them. You should be focused on doing better and aiming upward every single day in regards to who you were the day before. That's what's most important. Moving on to rule 5, it talks about do not let your children do anything that makes you dislike them. This is a chapter about parenting. So, as someone who's not a father right now, I cannot entirely relate to this chapter, but he talks about being a proper parent, disciplining your child, not letting them get away with things that they shouldn't, so that they grow up to be, socialized, they grow up to be functioning members of society, to have friends, um, to do a good job. If you're a parent, then this chapter it'll probably help you out a lot. For me, I can glean a little bit here and there, but at the end of the day, it's just not very useful for me. Rule number 6 is to set your house in perfect order before you criticize the world. This rule talks a lot about, people who want to judge the state of the world, who want to call it terrible, who think that they can be judge, jury, and executioner, and that they can, form a proper opinion about how messed up the world is when they haven't set their house in order. They haven't solved their problems. So the idea here is that you forget about, the state of the world. You forget about, oh, it's this, it's that, it's unfair, it's terrible. You don't complain. You set your house in order. You focus on you, and you do your best to fix your problems and be better. And don't play judge of the world. That's the idea. The next rule is rule number 7: pursue what is meaningful, not what is expedient. So, the idea behind this one is that the best way to explain this be? I actually don't remember this chapter too well myself, but the main idea is that, something with long term meaning is always going to provide more fulfillment and more joy than short term pleasure. Obviously, I mean, most people know this, but short term pleasure is, in essence, a trap, and it doesn't produce a happy, meaningful life. It just produces a pretty hollow existence. Rule number 8, I would say, is probably the most important rule in this book. It's tell the truth, or at least don't lie. The idea in this chapter, for me, like if I were to take anything from this book, it would be this rule. The idea is that telling the truth leads directly to heaven, and lying leads directly to hell. And I'm saying that in a physical, like in an earthly sense, that telling the truth directly and immediately leads to the betterment of your life, and lying, while causing short term comfort, immediately leads to the deterioration and destruction of your life. And the biggest lies can actually destroy the entire world and entire civilizations. So, probably the single most important chapter in this book. I'll just leave it there. Crazy read, very impactful. Um, it just shows you how important the truth really is, and how even small lies can destroy. They have great destructive power. Rule number 9 is to assume that the person you are listening to might know something you don't. The idea here is to obviously, be a really strong, really good listener, which is very rare in today's society, because it might actually teach you something. You might actually realize something that, you didn't know about the person, or about a situation, or about, something you were looking for. The more you do this, the more you'll discover about other people, the more you'll be able to relate to them, the more you'll be able to understand them, the more you'll be able to understand yourself sometimes in the process. So, my hair's getting crazy. Hold up. I just woke up. Sorry, my voice is a little scratchy. But it's another good chapter. It's another good rule. Assume the person you are listening to might know something you don't. Rule 10 is to be precise in your speech. The idea here is, if you have a problem, you want to clearly define it as accurately as possible, because that's the best way to fix it. To be honest, that's all I remember from that chapter. Um, I remember there being some good stuff in there, but I think it just didn't stick with me as much as the other rules. Rule 11 is do not bother children when they are skateboarding. So the idea in this one is that it's sort of another parenting chapter where you need to let children and adolescents have the freedom to go make their mistakes and learn their lessons. You can't shelter and overprotect them, because that leads to a lot of problems. And the final rule, rule number 12, is to pet a cat when you encounter one on the street. So this one is basically talking about, no matter how bad your life is, finding little moments of joy. Like if you find a cat on the street, you pet it. And it's the idea that no matter how much suffering there is in your life, you want to try to find little glimpses of happiness wherever you can. And that's the book. Overall, I really enjoyed reading it. I thought it was fantastic. I'd recommend it to anybody. I'd say out of 10, I would give this book an 8 to an 8.5 out of 10. I think it was very impactful. I think it was very helpful. I think I learned a lot. I'd recommend anybody to read this book because I think there's a lot of knowledge and a lot of lessons to be learned from it. If you made it to the end of the review, thank you very much for watching all the way through. And hopefully when I finish my next book, I'll record another one of these. Peace.